Hi, I'm sorry if I look pale. I meant to record this video yesterday, but I fainted. I literally fainted. So I'm shooting this today, and that's why I look like I died because I kind of did. Anyway, let's go into my review of Wuthering Heights. So, I finally had a chance to go see Wuthering Heights in a theater. I have seen a lot of discourse about it online, and mostly mixed to negative reviews. So of course I had to go see it for myself. I really encourage you to never trust the internet and to always use the critical thinking skills and checking things out for yourself, especially when it comes to art. Art is subjective and so is every opinion. In this video, I will give you my opinion and try to analyze some decisions that were made by Emerald Fennell on this movie. I will summarize my opinion without spoiler first and then go into more detail. But before that, let's talk about the movie itself. Wuthering Heights was produced, directed and written by Emerald Fennell. It was also produced by Margot Robbie, who plays the lead role of Kathy alongside Jacob Elordi. This movie is an adaptation of the novel of the same name by Emily Bronte, published in 1847. We follow Catherine Earnshaw and Heathcliff, who live in the isolated Wuthering Heights. It has been adapted into a movie countless times, usually focusing only on the first part of the story about Kathy and Heathcliff, and not the second part about their children. This one is no exception. Here is my spoiler-free opinion. I think this movie, if you don't know that it's an adaptation, is okay. It has qualities, the costumes and the production design are original and interesting, the acting is good, but it also has flaws. There's too much explanations from the screenplay, the actors are too old for the roles they are playing. As an adaptation, it is terrible. This looks more like a fan fiction inspired by the novel rather than the actual novel. This adaptation erased 90% of what was interesting about the book to make it about sex. Any struggle of class, gender, race is gone to make room for as much sex scenes as possible. I give this movie a 5 out of 10. Now let's dive into the story with spoilers. First, I will talk about the costumes. There was a bit of controversy when we got the first pictures of the costumes, as they are not historically accurate at all. I wanted to wait to actually see them in action and within the sets to make my own opinion, and I have to say, I actually don't mind them. Both the costumes and the sets have this element of fantasy, and it almost feels like Alice in Wonderland. These places feel anchored in reality, but there's also a feeling of magic and of strangeness. So I actually think it works. Except for a couple of dresses, mostly the ones that look like shower curtains. Not only did they look cheap, but they really did not fit in with the other costumes. They kind of look like they came out of nowhere. Hi, this is Edith Garance. I forgot to put this in the review, but it came back to me after watching other people talking about Wuthering Heights. About the costumes, that god-awful corset tightening scene, this is 2026. We don't need these lying corset tightening scenes. Basically, in one scene, Nellie is helping Kathy put on her corset, and there's so much wrong about this scene. First of all, the corset is wore on the bare skin, which would not have been the case. And there's this scene of like, oh, you need to, she says like, tighter, put it tighter. And then it's like, you're not gonna be able to breathe. And Kathy's like, tighter. And it's like, oh my god, like this is not how it works. Like, corsets are not supposed to kill you. Also, this is not how you tighten up corset. And also, like, this is not how you wear a corset. A corset is not supposed to make you stop breathing. It's supposed to, like, make your waist, slimmer. But it's not supposed to choke you and kill your lungs. And it was not worn on the bare skin. And then at the end, we can see, like, there's blood on her back because of how tight the corset was. And I guess that's the only way that people find to portray female oppression is through a corset, when that is not at all how it works. And it's just like, this is 2026. We don't need that. And it was just awful, and I was rolling my eyes so bad, and it lasted for so long, and it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And talking about the costume, something I also forgot to mention was how everything that Kathy wore, we could see like her boobs, the décolleté, and it's like, you're out there in the cold with your boobs out, basically. No wonder you're dying. Like, you're gonna catch a cold and die. And like, she doesn't die of tuberculosis. In the book, I don't think she dies of tuberculosis. Like, it's kind of implied that it might be tuberculosis, maybe because of pregnancy, we don't really know. Of course you're gonna catch a cold and die. Like, you're out here walking, like, with your bare chest out in the middle of the moors. Like, what is wrong with you? So, yeah, those were like, I get this is like an aesthetic choice, but like, no wonder she dies. Like, she would have died anyway. But yeah, this was just like, we can't have these corset scenes anymore. Like, this is not okay. Like, it doesn't make sense. So I forgot to mention it, but it came back to me and I was really pissed about it. But yeah, the corset thing, that's a no for me. Most of the rooms look nice and again add this fantasy element to it. Something else I liked was the dollhouse, although I don't really understand why it was there. Just like a lot of people, I thought that this adaptation was going to be much different. When the first trailer was released, people were very disappointed by what they were seeing for many reasons that we'll get into later, but I had this idea, just like a lot of people, that could have explained all the differences. Maybe the character played by Margot Robbie was a woman reading Wuthering Heights and inserting herself in it, picturing herself as Kathy and the man that she loved as Heathcliff. This would have explained the dollhouse, pretending that this was the Wuthering Heights house, and also the more fantasy elements of the costumes and the sets. It would also have explained why there was a white man playing Heathcliff, who is a person of color in the book. Maybe the movie could have been about a woman completely misunderstanding this novel and making a romance out of it, when the story is really about abuse and control. We could have had a parallel of the same things happening in the book, with a blue guy called Heathcliff, versus the romanticized version of a horny woman. It could have been a very interesting way to revisit this very famous novel that has already been adapted a million times. But instead we have this. I guess this is, in the end, the romanticized version of a horny woman. As you can understand, I have a lot of negative things to say about this movie. But before, let's talk about the music. I actually think that the Wuthering Heights album by Charli XCX reflects the story better than the movie. At the end, the song Almost Everywhere may be a bit emotional. I think the songs work well with the visuals. But forgetting that this is an adaptation, imagine that I don't know anything about the book, this movie is still weak. The characters look way too old to be acting like that. The children in the beginning are great, and they are actually closer in age to the actual characters in the book, so that's also why it's weird to see so many sex scenes with people who are supposed to be teenagers. In the book, they are like 16 or so, but Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi do not look 16. They sure are acting like 16-year-old though, and it looks ridiculous because they are full-grown adults. Their age is not mentioned, so you wonder why are these 30-year-olds acting like that? Something I didn't like was that the screenplay was sometimes so explicit it hurt. We have a lot of time skips because the story takes place over multiple years, and instead of showing us, they tell us it's been a certain amount of time that it's been. When Kathy comes back after having broken her ankle and stayed with the Lintons, well, actually Linton because they're not related, Isabella and Edgar in this movie, so anyway. When she comes back, she steps out of the carriage with literally nothing different about her other than her dress, and Nellie says, "You're transformed." Girl is literally just wearing another dress and has her hair up, and somehow, just because one character says it, we have to understand that she's transformed. There are a few instances of that when the movie doesn't show but tells us. Even when we have the montage of Catherine when she just got married and she's enjoying her life with Edgar and Isabella, we understand how she's feeling because the song tells us, "I feel trapped," but it's barely showed on screen. The writing just isn't that good sometimes. As I said, I think this is an okay movie on its own, but a terrible adaptation. If you had told me that this was inspired by Wuthering Heights, I would have believed you, because everyone has the same names as in the books, but they are nothing like the characters in the book. Hindley, Catherine's brother, is missing, and the character of her father is very different, but that I can understand. It's almost like they are mixed together, which is practical to do when you're making a movie and you don't want to have too many characters. The character of Joseph is so different it's comical, and he's not even that useful in the movie. Nellie is made to be the villain when in the book, although she is an unreliable narrator, she seemed to me like the only person that was somewhat sane. I really don't like what they did to her. In the beginning, when we first meet Edgar and Isabella, Isabella is talking to him about Romeo and Juliet, and how she thinks their death is ultimately the fault of their nurse who let it happen. Basically, they are hinting at the fact that Nellie is going to be the villain, and like everything is her fault. And of course, one of the only non-white person is the villain of the movie. It wouldn't be that big of a deal if Emerald Fennell had not cast a white man to play the only black man in English literature. In every adaptation except one, Heathcliff is always portrayed by a white man. It's understandable for the older movies to not feature a black man in lead role because of the Hays Code and, racism. The only adaptation with a black man is from 2011, but even those from the 90s to 2000s have white men playing Heathcliff. But you would think that in big 2026, after all we have been through in the last decade in terms of fighting against discrimination for a lot of marginalized groups, that a black man would be cast to play, again, one of the only black characters in classic literature. This felt even worse when Edgar and Isabella show Catherine her new house, and her room is the color of her skin because, and I quote, "Her skin is the most beautiful color." This is weird in itself, but why pointing out, like, look, she's white, blonde, and has blue eyes, isn't she the prettiest? It feels like it to me, and I'm a white woman, so... Overall, I think this movie tries to make Kathy and Heathcliff star-crossed lovers, hence the comparison with Romeo and Juliet. But this is not the case here. They are not doomed to be apart because of destiny, they are apart because of Nellie. You cannot personify destiny. When lovers are star-crossed, it means that no matter how hard they try, they will never be together. Here, not only are they together in many, many sex scenes, but they are not trying very hard to stay together. And the sex scenes also ruin the dynamics that they have. There is so much tension because they never work together. They never even kiss, let alone have a torrid affair. That's what makes it so good, if you can call it that. I feel like the movie tries to be edgy with all the shocking sex scenes, but first of all, they are not all that shocking. I was expecting something freaky, but I can't say that I was clutching my pearls watching the sex scenes. There's no nudity or nothing that made me blush. What was shocking was the weird scenes between Heathcliff and Isabella. She's obviously being abused, but it is depicted as sexy or freaky when, no, kidnapping a young girl and chaining her like a dog is not sexy. Again, that was a more shocking rage bait scene that Fennell knew would make people talk. In conclusion, although the acting and the directing are fine, the writing is not that good. Fennell clearly did not understand the book at all and just wanted to make a movie that kinda looked like it to attract people and create controversy, like she usually likes to do with her movies. She is not willing to discuss any of the important topics of the book and is very happy to stay at the surface of a so-called love story. This feels like a Jacob Lordy fanfiction that she wrote, and she cast him because she wanted to see him shirtless. There are some interesting things about this movie, but they are overshadowed by the absurdity of everything else. I can't say that I felt much watching this movie. Not sadness, not joy, pretty much nothing. This feels like a rage bait adaptation, and I guess it's working. Except for the sex scenes, this movie would do just well under the Hays Code, no interracial relationship, casting white people to play roles of people of color, making the unfaithful cheating girl die at the end, focusing only on the romantic aspect and the first part of the story because you don't actually care about the story, you just want to make money off of a doomed romance. I understand that this is a long book and that it is easier to only adapt the first part about Kathy and Heathcliff, but by doing so you're focusing only on the love story and not on the real themes of the book. You can understand why they did it in the 30s, for example, but I think it's a shame to still do it today. If the book is too long, turn it into a miniseries. 8-hour-long episodes are more than enough to cover the entire story, the themes of violence, of racism, and still talk about the romance. But again, I don't think Fennell was looking to make an adaptation as much as a fanfiction starring Jacob Elordi. I just don't think that this is something interesting to do in 2026. Thank you for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it. On this channel I talk about cinema, TV shows and music, and yeah, thank you for watching, bye!